Hello everyone, welcome to a new video on the channel. Today I am wrapping up the month of December in my reading journal, and I'm also wrapping up the entire year of 2022. So if you're new here, I do this every month. I finish off what I have started each month in my reading journal, and I always start with the favorite reads page. This is going to be the last favorite read that I put in one of these videos and in my journal, as I decided that it wasn't a page that I really utilized well in this journal, but for the sake of this one I wanted to finish the year out and complete this. My favourite read of December was The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. This book was a much needed breath of fresh air to my otherwise dismal December. This was the worst reading month I've had all year long, and this book, even on its own, was so good that I couldn't stop laughing. I definitely didn't want to put it down. It was just so delightful, and I highly recommend it. I definitely went from having just this thought that I had my 22 books of 2022 set already before the end of December, and then I read this and I had to change everything around because it had to go into my top 22. It was that good. I absolutely loved the writing, the witty prose, the banter between the main characters, the fact that it's a whimsical world as well. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so whimsy, but it was so good. And if you haven't read it and you like romances and you don't mind historical elements, definitely pick this up. It was so good. And unfortunately it was the only 5-star read of December. Like I said, I had a really horrible month reading wise. There were a few books that were just okay, but on the whole, my entire month was somewhat flagged by the fact that I was incredibly busy wrapping up the entire year. I was setting up 3 different bullet journals. I was getting ready for Christmas. I knew that it was going to be a busy month, but all the same, I wasn't expecting it to be this challenging. I also had 2 readathons / prompts on the go, so I was playing the TBR jar that I run, and also I was participating in a readathon, and that did put a little bit of pressure on me. I did manage to finish both of them, and I'm happy that I did, but some of the original choices that I had I didn't use, and I was thankful that I had other options. But a lot of the books I read, they were just either okay or not okay. I had a 2.5-star and a 2-star read this month, and the rest were 3.5s roughly. Like I said, just okay. I can't really think of anything to say that was amazing about anything that I read, but I could talk for a long time about some of the books that were just horrible. The worst read of the month was A Merry Little Meet Cute, which was actually a buddy read for one of the book clubs that I belong to, and I personally just didn't gel with the storyline. It was definitely more porn than plot, and that's not for me. I definitely like my characters to have some depth and their relationships to have some sort of process to it that makes sense, and this one just didn't. And another one that was pretty low on the list was It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. It was my last Colleen Hoover book that I've decided to read, and I wanted to read it because I read It Ends With Us, and I feel like it was just written for the fans of this series. It was nothing new. It wasn't horrible, but there was nothing really to add to the world, and yeah, so I gave it 2.5 stars. Otherwise, yeah, like I said, nothing really stood out, but at the same time I'm really disappointed with this. Was the worst month of the year. All the same though, I'm really excited to get into January and start reading again. I took a few days off at the end of the year to have a bit of a break from reading, recharge, get some things sorted like this video, and also get some new slides ready for the new year on Instagram. On to the stats for the month. We've got a total of 11 books that were read, and 10 of them were novels. 1 was an anthology. I read 4,594 pages. My average rating was 3.45. I read 6 romances. 1 was a historical romance, 4 fantasy, and 1 contemporary. 9 adult books, 1 new adult book, and 1 YA for the audience rating, and then 7 physical books, 3 ebooks, and 1 audiobook. 4 buddy reads, like I mentioned that I had a few buddy reads, and I had the 1 readathon. I didn't have any arcs that I completed this month or any books that I DNF'd, and yeah, I think that's all the stats, isn't it? As you can see, we're just now moving on into putting on the collage, the last one of the year. I made this one slightly bigger since I had less amount of books, and then I also am flipping over and showing you the 2022 book bracket. Now, I set this up randomly one night, and it's not the greatest looking thing, but I'm also happy I stuck it in at the very end of this book, so I could have a reference to all the books that I enjoyed this year by the month that I enjoyed them, and then the overall. I couldn't decide between these Twisted Bonds and the Ballad of Never After, so I just put them both there. Flipping to the front of the book, I am now going to fill in this page. I have waited to fill this in for the longest time, and let me tell you, whilst it was a little bit of a challenge to set up, taking off all the backings of those stickers, this looks so good, and I'm so happy that I decided to do this. It is a very, very lovely page, and has some really good books. I had 44 5-star reads this year, and it was really challenging for me to take away half of them and figure out which order I wanted to put them in. There's still probably some books that I would like to swap around now that I've stuck them down. I'm not going to, but they're all there, and I had some fantastic reads. A lot of these books were actually arcs as well, or books that I didn't expect to end up here at all, so I'm really happy with my top 22. There is only, I think, 1 author that got 2 books on the top 22 list, and that was Sarah J. Maas. If you didn't know, I read the entire Throne of Glass series this year as a read-along with a great group of friends that we now made into a fantasy book club. And so I have Kingdom of Ash, and I also have Queen of Shadows from that on this list. A few late entries are also here. I have The Inadequate Heir by Danielle L. Jensen. I read the entire 3 books that she has in the Bridge Kingdom series in November, and I also read The Mysterious Society of Lady Scoundrels. That's also there. And yeah, I'm really happy with a lot of these books that are on here, and looking forward to their sequels if there are any more to come in those worlds. And for the ones that were conclusions, they were really, really great. There was also only a small handful of romances that ended up on here, but they were so phenomenal, and I highly recommend them if you haven't read them at all, especially Set on You by Amy Lee and Book Lovers by Emily Henry. It was my top romance of the year. I just read more fantasy. Well, that's a lie. I enjoy more fantasy than I do romance, so that's why fantasy always rules the roost kind of situation there. So moving on to the Days Red Pixel, we're finally filling in that last month on the chart, and it looks so good when it's finally finished. I'm looking forward to filling this in my new journal with the grid lines already spaced out, because that was the biggest issue I was having with this. It does look a bit messy because it's not even, and overall I'm happy to see some of the trends that remained throughout the year quite consistently, and then equally seeing where months changed and trying to understand why. This is one of my favorite insights to reading and figuring out why I do what I do, and I definitely cannot wait to continue this into the new year. I think that this is one of the most underrated pages in my setup. I spend a lot of time filling it in each month, but I really do think that I could flip over it and not pay much attention to it, but when I sit here and look at it, I think it's actually really cool, and I hope that if you haven't tried one in your journal, that you might in 2023. I don't know why I'm still filling in things that I know are broken, so we're just going to move straight on to the 2022 stats page. And as you can see, I finally filled in the bottom half of this journal. You might have noticed that I've covered up a bit that I had previously written down and now I have boxes over top of it. It just wasn't going to be feasible for the way that I want to set things up in this final page of stats, but I'm really happy with how I've done it. There are two that are not going to be filled in on camera because I forgot to count them up before filming, and that would take me a great deal of time to do, so I've just left them blank, and at some point in the next few days I'm going to go through and figure out how many buddy reads I actually did and how many readathons I participated in, which I think would be about 5 or 4, something around that. Anyway, my top most read authors were Jennifer L. Armentrout, Lexi Ryan, Sarah J. Maas, AJ Lancaster, and Christina Lauren. And my top genres were romance, contemporary ones, fantasy, paranormal, historical romance, and mythology. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't really put a lot of effort into choosing what genre books really fall into. For me, it's just mostly romance or fantasy. They always have that element, so it's kind of hard for me to do that, but breaking it down a little bit, that was how I found it. So that is the end of this video. I will have an entire flip through, I've already filmed it, of this journal for you to see soon, so stay tuned for that. And I will also have new videos for 2023 coming very, very soon. If you're watching this in the new year, well, you should be, because it will be the new year most places in the world right now. I hope that you had a safe and happy new year, and I hope that 2023 brings us all great things. Bye everyone.